Class 9, let's continue the chapter number 11, the atmosphere. Children, in today's class, I'm going to tell you about the greenhouse effect, global warming, as well as I'm going to tell you the various causes of destruction of the ozone layer. So let's proceed for that. In previous class, I told you about the insolation, right? So insolation is what? It's a incoming solar radiation, is known as insolation. So let's talk about the terrestrial radiation. Now, what is terrestrial radiation? The sun's energy absorbed by the earth's surface when radiated out into the space is called terrestrial radiation. So what is terrestrial radiation? So terrestrial radiation is that energy, that sun's energy, which is absorbed by the earth's surface when radiated out into the space. That's the terrestrial radiation. So that terrestrial radiation is in the form of long waves. So in the previous class, I told you that insolation is the incoming solar radiation, and that is in the form of short waves. But terrestrial radiation is what? It is in the form of long waves, right? Okay, just see the diagram here. The atmosphere easily transmits short waves radiations from the sun, but is poor transmitter of the longer waves radiated from Earth's surface. So this selective transmission causes that is called greenhouse effect. Now just see the diagram here. Now the incoming solar radiation. So this is the incoming solar radiation, and some part of the solar radiation is absorbed by the earth's surface, and some part are reflected back. So this reflected radiation, the sun's energy absorbed by the earth's surface, and when radiated out into the space, this radiated out radiation is known as terrestrial radiations, and this is the incoming of solar radiation, that is known as insolation. This is insolation, and this is terrestrial radiation. Now it's written here, the amount of energy radiated by the earth is equal to the amount of insolation absorbed by the earth's surface. The terrestrial radiation estimated at 51 units. Out of this, water vapor and gases absorb 34 units of energy, and rest 17 units are radiated back to space, right? So in insolation, we already read about like some part of that insolation, solar radiation, are absorbed by the earth's surface, and some part are radiated back into the space. Okay, now the ozone layer and the greenhouse effect and global warming, very very important topic. Ozone is an allotrope of oxygen. Means what is the formula of ozone? O3. Ozone is gas having 3 atoms of oxygen. So we write O3 for ozone, O2 for oxygen, and O3 for ozone. So that is the allotrope of oxygen. So ozone is that gas which is having 3 atoms of oxygen in its molecules. Ozone is produced by the action of sunlight on oxygen in the upper layer of the atmosphere, 16 km from the surface of the earth. The amount of ozone in the atmosphere gradually increases from 16 km until at about 23 km altitude. So altitude means height. The ozone layer in the upper atmosphere is of great importance. Why? Because it absorbs the harmful UV radiations present in sunlight coming from the sun. Right? So this we have already discussed in the previous video, that importance of the ozone layer, O3. What is the importance of ozone? That it absorbs the harmful UV rays, ultraviolet rays or radiations present in the sunlight coming from the sun. So this highly useful ozone layer in the upper atmosphere has been threatened by a wide range of human activities So how human activities like deforestation and human activities like deforestation and your urbanization, establishing big factories and industries uh, and disturbing like the human settlements for the purpose of for building purposes like multi-purpose projects, dams, river projects, etc., mining, quarrying, we can say. So these all are the human activities which had or which have been threatening in a wide range, threatening the this highly useful ozone layer. The upper atmosphere has been threatened by various human activities. In the year 1980, an ozone hole was detected. So there was a hole in the ozone layer that was detected in the year 1980. So the ultraviolet rays, which were earlier almost completely blocked by the ozone layer, now can enter what? Now can enter Earth's surface or the Earth's lower atmosphere to some extent through this ozone hole. So, these UV rays are very harmful and can cause skin cancer and other harmful diseases. Clear? So, we have uh, this ozone layer is very important. As I told you, it helps or it absorb the harmful UV rays coming from the sun, and this ozone hole has been detected in 1980, and due to which the sun rays, UV rays, directly enters the Earth's lower atmosphere to some extent. So this UV rays, which directly enters the atmosphere, Earth's atmosphere, is very very harmful and can cause several diseases, harmful diseases, as well as skin cancer. It can cause skin cancer also, right? Okay, now next is causes of destruction of the ozone layer. How ozone layer gets disturbed, or how it there are various causes, various several reasons of destructions of the ozone layer. So number one is the chlorofluorocarbon, that is CFCs. Fluorocarbon, so these are the chemicals which are used in spray cans, refrigerators, and so these chemicals react with the ozone layer and destroyed ozone layers, right? That is why this is one of the major reasons or the causes for the destructions and the depletion of ozone layer. Second is radioactive substances. So we know that the radioactive substances are uranium, thorium. This deplete the ozone layer. So these radioactive substances are used in power stations to hydraulic or hydropower stations and nuclear explosions, and their reactions produces large quantities of nitrogen oxides which goes into the stratosphere and thus depletes the ozone layer, right? So this radioactive substances are also very harmful and one of the causes for the destruction of the ozone layer. Next is air pollutions. We know that the air pollution is also responsible for the depletion of ozone layer, because air pollution due to smog, like the example it's given here, London smog, the leakage of the lethal gas from the Union Carbide factory of Bhopal, the nuclear disaster at air pollutions like the London smog, we know that it's a mixture of smoke and fog. So that's a very serious pollutant which creates air pollutions, and that air pollutions is one of the causes of destruction of the ozone layer. The leakage of lethal gas from the Union Carbide factory of Bhopal. We know that the Bhopal gas tragedy, all have heard about the Bhopal gas tragedy, and that was the worst industrial disaster, we can say, in the human history, right? So in this Union Carbide factory, there was a leakage of methyl isocyanate gas, and which became the very destructive, right? It took many lives, and that we can say one of the causes for the destruction of ozone layer. Means it had contributed for the destruction of the ozone layer. The nuclear disaster at Chernobyl had a very serious effect on the ozone layer. So the nuclear disaster, so nuclear explosion at the Chernobyl, that also had a great effect on the ozone layer. That means this Chernobyl, this nuclear disaster at Chernobyl contributed the destruction of ozone layer. Now next is greenhouse effect. The heating up of Earth's atmosphere due to trapping of infrared rays. So infrared means reflected from the Earth's surface by the carbon dioxide layer in the atmosphere is known as greenhouse effect. Now just see this picture here. This is the greenhouse effect. You can see the insolation here. Insolation means it's a solar energy, incoming solar energy in the form of short waves length. So these insolation are in short waves, and we know that some of the part of this insolation absorbed by the Earth's atmosphere, Earth's layer, Earth's surface, and some are reflected back. That is in the form of long wave, and we called it infrared radiations. What is it? Infrared radiations, which is in the form of long wavelength. Now, what point to be noted here is, like carbon dioxide makes a layer here, right? So carbon dioxide layer in the atmosphere, it traps the heat, right? It traps the heat, and we know that like carbon dioxide gas present in the atmosphere performs an important function in the atmosphere and produces greenhouse effect, leading to the heating up of the atmosphere, right? So the blanket of carbon dioxide allows the sunlight to come in freely, but does not allow the infrared radiations reflected by the Earth's surface to go out. The rise in temperature produces by greenhouse effect in the Earth's atmosphere depends on the amount of carbon dioxide gas in the atmosphere. Now what happens is, a layer of carbon dioxide is there which traps the heat, which traps the infrared radiations, and thus making the Earth's surface rise in temperature, right? But what happens is, nowadays due to this pollution, the CO2, the content of CO2, that is increasing. That is why the CO2, the layer is getting thicker, CO2 layer, right? So this layer does not allow the infrared to go back into the space. Thus it helps in rising, or it creates rise in temperature of the Earth's atmosphere, Earth's surface. So about this global warming will study in the next video, right? So this is greenhouse effect. Okay children, that's all for the day. We'll continue this chapter in the next video. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.